carry these extremely long lines for the full duration is a challenge in and of itself. I thought that was done really well. So conceptually, I like so much of what your group is doing. I think I probably have like 2 or 3 minutes, right? So I'll just give a couple of quick general comments. So my first comment is to do with tempi. It's really hard to find the ideal tempo, and it might change because whatever feels right for the group might not always feel the best for one individual. But I do feel like the very beginning, for instance, Matthew, when you start, of course, it'll feel a little too stodgy in the piano to take the same tempo as when the whole group plays the same music at the end of the movement. But maybe it could be a little bit closer to that tempo, a little bit more resistance. Otherwise, the flow, which is what we're always trying to achieve, if it's too easy, when the group comes in and then there's the cello melody, it just feels quite a bit slower. It'd be nice if the 16th notes were kind of in the same stratosphere. Just a little bit more drawn out. So places like that, try to maybe think about before you begin the group feeling when everybody's playing that same music later on, what that feels like. And if you want to take it a hair faster than the beginning if you're by yourself, certainly, but maybe it'll bridge the gap a little bit more. And I would say the same thing about that first poco pimoso. It might feel too static to take that at the same tempo as when it comes later on, and then you have those eights. But again, I think it's similar music, and it should have a little bit of a more correlation between the tempi, right? So sometimes it's really hard to find the tempo at the beginning of anything that we play because we don't have a larger context. So I could say the same thing about the fugue. To me, it almost started a little too tentative. I love the purity of it, but it naturally, when more people play, it starts to move a little bit more. It starts to feel a little bit more open. So one thing you can try to imagine as you start is maybe having like a counter subject in your mind. Like there are other things filling in your long notes. You hear harmonies. Give yourself this imaginary context, and you're hearing lush stuff. Still play very quietly, but floating around and filling in rhythms, filling in harmonies, and that might help internally, at least, right? The opening of the fugue. So some of the things that happen as a result of these slightly different tempi is that people feel a little undecided, but I feel like the places where you are most decided together as a group and you're really digging in, like for example, in the third movement, the most savage spots, I feel like everybody's in character. There's no doubt that's the tempo you often feel, right? So maybe you take that as a reference point and try to work backwards, work from those places to see if you can find the same kind of commitment in other places. And then if you make the decision, it has to be a little faster, or it has to be slower, or whatnot. You're very much aware this is the group tempo that's all going to gravitate towards, so they can be more feeling of gravitating to certain tempi. Does that make sense? Yeah. Otherwise, I feel it lacks a little bit of kind of a cohesiveness when we hear the same music come back. And it's, even if it's very different in character, I think it has to have a little bit more of that underlying pulse that holds it together. A couple more, do I have more time or? Yeah. Okay, so I feel like the third movement, which at times needs to sound very playful, at times needs to sound quite savage. I feel like there are places that it could be more intense from everybody. It's almost like you're trying to scale it back deliberately. But you don't want to cover them, or because it's too much loud. I think if we're doing any kind of scaling, maybe in terms of the volume, but not in terms of the emotional intensity. Because I feel like, yeah, the ending should feel so relentless, and it kind of felt like you're trying not to step on toes, right? And of course, maybe you overdid it at some point, and now you're scaling it back, but to find that delicate balance to scale things, have proportions without feeling like you're holding back. That's kind of always an internal challenge in music like this that has so much loud for so long. But I guess that would be the impression I got was that things that needed to stay intense gave up. And so, but the playfulness, the sarcastic qualities, the savage parts of music really do come through quite nicely. What else? One last comment about the fugue, which I think it sounds really, it's so beautiful. You have such pure sounds. I like how it's non-vid for at least long stretches. Every once in a while, I think when the harmony non-vid. One person can add a little more warmth when they have an inner voice that adds something more. You have a little bit more major color. Maybe give it a little more glow here and there, but it still gravitates more to that kind of pure sound. Otherwise, I feel like maybe it's too much of the same sort of thing. And underlying, there are these things that are shifting, and sometimes you need other things to bring it out besides just showing it, right? Maybe it's a little change of color here and there can help that. So even the very last note of that fugue, it's really hard to sustain it with one long bow as you're doing, but maybe it needs just a little something in that middle of the note, and then let it kind of run out. All right? Okay, but bravo, wonderful.